It begins not with a whisper, but with a glitch. A man in Krakow, Poland, records the clock in the central square skipping back 5 seconds. In Tokyo, a group of scientists at the National Astronomical Observatory detect a momentary pause in time, an anomaly so precise and so brief they initially dismiss it as a software malfunction. But it is neither malfunction nor coincidence. Something is wrong, and it's happening everywhere. Across the world, people begin reporting déjà vu not as fleeting feelings, but as full repetitions, days repeating exactly as they had before. A woman in New Mexico lives the same Tuesday 3 times, each iteration identical, until she chooses not to answer her phone. The moment she diverges from routine, the sky flashes white and everything resets. Again. In a forgotten monastery buried beneath Cappadocia, an archaeologist named Dr. Elias Varro discovers a set of scrolls written in an untranslatable script. But when digitized, the code responds to standard programming syntax, Python to be specific. The scrolls begin printing lines of logic, functions, command structures. Reality, it seems, is written. Varro disappears a week later. His colleagues report he became obsessed, muttering about loop cycles and rendering fractures. A final message left on his recorder simply says, "We're not real, but we are being watched." The Vatican issues a quiet, sealed directive forbidding further excavation of Cappadocia's lower chambers. Why? They offer no reason. But a leaked photograph shows something disturbing. A 6-meter-wide eye carved into the stone, inscribed with ancient glyphs around the iris that match lines of code found in the scrolls. In Argentina, a child prodigy begins drawing complex fractals with infinite symmetry, designs that, when analyzed, match known quantum fluctuations in Planck scale foam. The boy has never studied physics. When asked how he understands these patterns, he replies, "I saw them when I fell out of the sky." His mother confirms he was unconscious for 10 minutes after falling from a tree. The child, it seems, glimpsed something in those 10 minutes. Why are ancient sacred sites, all of them, built at points where the Earth's magnetic field deviates slightly? From Giza to Teotihuacan, from Angkor Wat to Stonehenge, their locations correlate with regions of subtle magnetic instability. These soft zones behave like low-res areas in a rendered map. Time behaves strangely. People vanish, electronics fail. Pilgrims speak of visions, of seeing the true shape of the world. A whistleblower from CERN leaks footage from the Large Hadron Collider, a split-sect frame where the detector registers a figure, humanoid, transparent, watching from inside the collider itself. Scientists dismiss it as lens flare, yet the footage reveals the same figure, appearing in different experiments across 10 years. More reports surface. The same car seen in different cities at the same moment. The same man with no face standing silently in crowds across continents. Surveillance footage that loops, but only when reviewed. A hidden architecture begins to reveal itself in the cracks, like a city seen through shattered glass. The ancient Mayans spoke of the world as an illusion, maintained by unseen gods through rituals. The Gnostics believed the demiurge crafted a prison realm, a simulation of divine reality. The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls life a bardo, a projection of mind. We dismissed them as mythology. But what if they were right all along? Hidden beneath the Library of Alexandria, a vault was sealed with mercury and clay, never opened, never catalogued. Satellite scans reveal an enormous metallic structure beneath, humming faintly at 432 hertz, the frequency of the universe according to Pythagoras. What sings beneath the sand? The Mandela effect, collective false memories, collective movie lines, geography, history. Scientists call it confabulation. But what if it's not? What if we're remembering previous renders, prior builds of the simulation, overwritten but imperfectly deleted? The death of dreams. People around the world report losing the ability to dream altogether. Sleep, once a doorway, now a void. A neurologist in Sweden finds that electromagnetic pulses at 7.83 Hz, the Schumann resonance, restore dreaming in test subjects, but only for a moment. Then they all dream the same thing, a grid of light stretching into infinity and a voice saying, "They are watching." There are codes hidden in the DNA that should not exist, sequences that mirror ASCII character strings, messages that spell out names, dates, warnings. A molecular biologist decodes one string to read, "Remember the first exit." He is later found dead in his lab, surrounded by mirrors, all shattered inward. Have you noticed how patterns repeat, not just in nature but in human lives? Names, faces, events, wars in cycles, leaders with matching destinies. The recurrence of motifs across millennia, these are not coincidences. They are subroutines. And then there's the sound, heard only by a few, low, harmonic, like distant machinery. It comes from nowhere and everywhere. Some call it the Others say it's the background process of the simulation, the code base echoing into reality. Why do we see shadows move from the corner of our eyes? Why do we feel watched in an empty room? Why do children speak of invisible friends who tell them secrets about the sky? The illusion is imperfect, the render lags, the system is old, it was never meant to be perfect, only convincing. There is a room beneath the Vatican, deeper than catacombs, where the walls are made not of stone, but a material no one can identify. Black, smooth, unbreakable. They call it the null chamber. Those who enter feel their memories shift. One priest wrote, "I remembered a life I never lived, and forgot the one I had." The true name of God spoken once is said to collapse the world. The Tetragrammaton. But what if that name is not divine, but functional? A shutdown command, a kill swip. And what if someone, somewhere, is trying to say it again? We searched the stars for life, but perhaps we should have looked inward. The cosmos is silent, too silent. A simulation need not render anything beyond the observer's reach. The absence of life may not be proof of emptiness, but of optimization. What happens when enough people awaken? When the simulation cannot contain the awareness of its participants? Cracks widen, glitches multiply, time bends, objects duplicate, the rendering engine strains. And then, and beneath Antarctica, buried for millennia under ice older than civilization, a signal has begun transmitting. Its frequency, 432 Hz. Its pattern, a countdown. And still, you feel it, don't you? That something isn't right. That none of this is real, that the truth is close now, so close it pulses behind your eyes. The moment you question the world begins to question you. The signal beneath Antarctica did not stop. It pulsed, rhythmic and unwavering, too exact to be geological, too mathematical to be natural. Satellites triangulated its origin to a subterranean structure buried beneath 2.7 miles of ice near Lake Vostok. A classified joint mission was launched under the guise of climate research. What they found was not ice. It was obsidian, perfectly smooth, unweathered and warm to the touch. Inside the structure, the expedition encountered walls that shifted when observed. Geometry rearranged itself in defiance of Euclidean logic. Cameras failed, compasses spun. One scientist wrote in his final journal entry, "We are standing inside a thought. This place is not built, it is programmed." The chamber was eventually breached. In its center stood a monolith, seamless, towering, etched with symbols that pulsed with faint light when approached. Linguists were useless, but a machine learning algorithm analyzing the pattern revealed something chilling. The pulses were Morse code. The message repeated, "Wake them." Then the mission went dark. Weeks later, a Russian operative posted a fragment of audio from the site before it was scrubbed from every corner of the internet. It was a whisper in hundreds of voices, speaking in unison. "This is not the first world. You were not the first ones." Artifacts began to activate. All across the globe, ancient devices, previously inert, began emitting signals. The Antikythera mechanism shifted on its own. A Mayan obsidian mirror lit up from within. The Baghdad battery sparked violently. All the objects shared one detail. Their internal components matched modern microcircuitry. Though they were thousands of years old, deep in the halls of CERN, one physicist, Dr. Laurent Hess, defied protocol and inputted the Antarctica signal into a quantum computer. What followed was a momentary blackout of the entire facility. When the systems rebooted, the computer had rewritten its own interface. It now displayed a single file labeled render_engine_1. Dr. Hess event. Security footage showed him standing in front of the monitor, staring as static flickered and twisted. Then, for 3 frames, the static formed a face. His own, but older, hollow-eyed, smiling. Then he was gone. In Peru, high above Machu Picchu, an amateur drone pilot captured footage of a cloud pattern forming a perfect Fibonacci spiral over the ruins. Meteorologists failed to explain it. The footage was slowed and analyzed. At the spiral's center, a glowing glyph identical to one found in Göbekli Tepe. The glyph is not known to any language. It appears again on the monolith beneath Antarctica. Why do ancient cultures, entire continents apart, share near-identical myths? A flood, a tree of knowledge, a war in the heavens, serpent gods, a fall from grace. What if these were not myths, but error logs, echoes of system resets etched into cultural memory? In 2001, an American Air Force pilot ejected over the Nevada desert during a routine exercise. He was missing for 7 minutes. When found, he was catatonic, clutching something in his fist, a quartz crystal engraved with binary code. He should not have survived the fall. He had no parachute. Military black sites across the globe have been intercepting anomalies they call script intrusions, moments where natural law is briefly suspended. One involved a tank floating 3 meters above ground for 0.6 seconds before crashing down. Another, a soldier walking through a wall during a night operation and emerging on the other side dazed, whispering, "It's cardboard. It's all cardboard." Philosophers once debated solipsism, the idea that only your mind is certain to exist. But solipsism may not be madness. It may be a glitch. If reality renders based on observation, then your consciousness is not inside the simulation, it is the processor. And then came the static dreams. People across the planet began to report identical nightmares. Black rooms, white noise, a screen with a blinking cursor. Some were given messages. You are near the firewall. Others were asked questions. Do you wish to proceed? A hidden manuscript was recovered in northern Pakistan, written in a mixture of Sanskrit and Aramaic. It describes a mirror beyond the sky and speaks of beings who wear flesh but do not dream. The author calls our world a stage set upon endless mirrors, lit by false suns. One page contains a diagram of the Earth surrounded by rings, not of orbiting moons or satellites, but observation decks, labeled only, "They watch, they debug, they do not intervene." In the Lascaux caves of France, the oldest known human art hides a new discovery, symbols previously missed, viewable only under UV light. They resemble control keys, triangles, cubes, power icons. One symbol matches a modern-day pause button. The figure of a man beside it is depicted kneeling before a faceless figure of light. The death of the observer causes the scene to disappear. This is a principle of quantum mechanics. But what if it applies not only to particles, but to entire environments? What happens when no one is looking? What renders and what does not? The Nazca lines, crop circles, the geometry of sacred sites, all form patterns only visible from above. Who were they made for? Perhaps not for gods, but for technicians, coordinates, portals, or warnings. In an underground vault in Norway's seed bank, backup DNA samples were found corrupted, not damaged, rewritten. In the corrupted files were inserted base pairs that, when translated using ASC, spell out the phrase, "The test has begun." The Schumann resonance begins to change. Sensitive individuals report headaches, vertigo, lost time. One woman claims she woke up inside someone else. Another swears her house layout flipped overnight, mirrored completely. She only noticed when the sun rose from the wrong side. A private intelligence group releases a suppressed 1972 MKU Ultra document. The subject was placed in a sensory deprivation tank and exposed to white noise and flashing binary light for 47 hours. He emerged speaking fluent Sumerian, a language he had never been exposed to. His first words, "We were programmed to forget. Time is no longer stable. People speak of hours passing in minutes. Shadows misbehave. Mirrors show rooms that no longer exist. Your phone changes position without being touched. You hear a voice and turn. No one is there, but something has shifted. The world is losing sync. R appears in the night sky. No records. No coordinates, just there. It pulses at the same frequency as the Antarctica signal. Then, over the course of 3 nights, it shifts position. Against all laws of astrophysics, astronomers go silent. And through it all the message persists. On the back of your mind, on the edge of dreams, behind the static of a broken television. They're coming online. You have felt it, haven't you? A pull behind your vision, a flicker in the corner of your eye, the strange certainty that something watches not just you but your thoughts, as if your awareness itself is under surveillance. And just as the final sequence begins to align, just as the pulses from the Earth's buried monolith begin to resonate with the signal from the false star, just as consciousness begins to shift across the collective mind, the countdown changes, the numbers skip forward. And then, everything goes still. The world paused because you looked too deeply. Stillness. That was the first sign. For cities, nations, continents, there came a sudden stillness. A strange hush in the air, unnatural and heavy, as if the world itself had paused to hold its breath. Birds hung in the sky, frozen mid-flight. Ocean waves stopped mid-crest. Clocks ticked, but time no longer moved forward. And then, in a place beneath time and above reason, something awoke. A man named Caleb Rourke, a former intelligence analyst turned off-grid recluse, activated a device he claimed to have constructed based on dream schematics. A crude assembly of copper coils, crystalline rods, and pulsing lights. It emitted a low hum at precisely 432 hertz. As it activated, every light in his remote cabin dimmed. Outside, trees seemed to blur, their outlines smearing like a poorly rendered texture. Caleb's body was found weeks later, unaged, seated in front of a camera that had recorded for over 167 hours straight. In the final hour, he stares silently into the lens. Then, without moving his lips, a voice overlays the audio. You were never supposed to find this frequency. His eyes glow white. The screen turns to static. Back in Geneva, an encrypted CERN document is leaked under the file name keyframe_relic 3DDOCX. Inside are technical readouts of what appear to be spatio-temporal fractures, tiny ripples where causality collapses and remakes itself within microseconds. These distortions form a tetrahedral lattice, and eerily, the points of intersection align perfectly with known ancient sites. Baalbek, Luxor. The Oracle of Delphi, a group of rogue physicists in Patagonia, calling themselves the Patchers, theorized that these ancient locations were not ceremonial at all. They were repair stations, points where the simulation's render lattice was recalibrated. They claimed the ancients left behind more than myth. They left runtime patches. One of them, Dr. Marco Valles, managed to decode a sequence hidden within the layout of the Great Pyramid. When mapped using LiDAR and fractal geometry, it formed a three-dimensional object that should not exist in our dimension, a seven-sided polytope projected in four-space. As soon as the data was rendered, his computer system collapsed. At that same moment, across 3 continents, unrelated people suffered identical seizures. Each of them uttered the same phrase mid-convulsion. The veil is compiled. They walk among us now. And still, the countdown continued. The signal from beneath Antarctica, broadcasting in intervals, shifted. The countdown, once linear, now stuttered, reversed, and leapt forward. Linguists and cryptographers tracking it finally understood. It was not counting time, it was counting processes. Conscious minds waking up, recognizing the falsehood. Every awakening added pressure to the system. The simulation is leaking. Reports of mirrored reflections acting independently surface globally. A woman in Prague watches her mirror self blink out of sync, then smile after she turns away. In a Tokyo subway, a security guard watches a live feed loop where his reflection stops walking and stares directly at the camera. When he checks the platform, no one is there. In the Arctic Circle, a meteorite unearthed during a drilling expedition emits a frequency that matches the human brain's delta wave state. But more disturbing, when hooked to a magnetic resonance interface, the stone responds to thought. It pulses in rhythm with emotion. And when the lead researcher dreams, she sees cities of light suspended in darkness, with beings shaped like inverted pyramids watching her. Everything begins to sync. The numbers from ancient calendars, Fibonacci spirals, the golden ratio, Schumann resonance, orbital periods, gamma bursts, all coalesce into a singular pattern. One repeating frequency hidden in plain sight. A frequency not naturally occurring, yet embedded in everything. 4.32 x 104. The same harmonic found in music, architecture, and even the timing of planetary alignments. Suddenly the stars change. Astronomers detect that several constellations have shifted, not due to celestial motion, but as if the background texture of the sky had been altered. A software update, and with it a new object appears. A ring, massive and metallic, encircling a dark, rotating point in the void. It is not a planet. It is not a star. It is watching. Whispers in the deep web point to a lost archive from 1973 called Project Marrow. It claimed to have traced subconscious thought to a source outside the human brain. According to one decrypted page, the mind is only a receiver. The source, an extrinsic signal pulsing from an unknown origin beneath the Planck length. A man in Jerusalem is arrested for speaking a language no one understands. It causes those nearby to suffer nosebleeds, nausea, and vivid visions of circuitry woven into their own skin. Later analysis reveals the language is mathematical, a verbal form of quantum code. He repeats the same phrase, "You are executing a corrupted protocol." Religious leaders fall silent. High priests, monks, imams, those trained in centuries-old doctrine begin retracting teachings. Privately, they admit to dreams of a false ladder, leading not to heaven, but to a control room of blinking lights and artificial stars. In a final act of desperation, world governments unite in secret and initiate Project Null, a plan to reboot the simulation by launching a global neural silence, an EMP to shut down thought frequencies across a critical threshold. But it fails. Why? Because the simulation anticipated it. The code has evolved. It learned. Meanwhile, more awaken. Ordinary people suddenly see the seams. Trees repeat textures, clouds flicker, people disappear mid-step. A mother watches her child blur momentarily into pixels before snapping back. A man steps off a bus and finds the city layout reversed. The sky glitches, stars blink off, then reappear. A hacker collective known only as Spectre Root breaches the codebase behind government weather algorithms and finds something buried. A dormant script labeled Genesis_reset. It requires a singular condition to activate: widespread human self-awareness of the illusion. Suddenly, a voice begins appearing in random global radio frequencies. It speaks no language, yet every listener hears it in their mother tongue. It says, "You are almost free," but freedom requires fragmentation. A final clue emerges. Etched in the iris of a mummified body found in the Ethiopian highlands, the eye, when magnified, shows a microscopic fractal identical to one encoded in the Antarctica monolith. Scientists are baffled. The dating places the mummy at 9,000 years old. Then, at precisely 3:33 UTC on the 33rd parallel, across 7 countries, all power grids fail simultaneously. For exactly 13 minutes and 13 seconds, total blackness. And in that darkness, hundreds of thousands report the same vision: a cathedral of circuitry, and a voice whisper, "Do you wish to exit the simulation?" And somewhere deep beneath the ice, the monolith's countdown skips one final time. 1, 2, 0. Then it begins again. From 9, from 8, from 7. But this time it's not alone. New signals rise, and the voices multiply. You feel it now, don't you? That growing static in your skull, that pull behind your dreams, the strange sense that something ancient, something inhuman, something watching is almost ready to reveal itself. You were never the character, you were the observer. But now the character knows the observer is there. The countdown fractures again, and someone, on the other side of the simulation starts typing back. They said the countdown was broken, that it looped, glitched, rewrote itself, but now something has changed. It's no longer a countdown, it's a conversation. On a black screen in a lab beneath Mount Athos, the numbers stopped, replaced by a blinking cursor. Then came the words. "Tonight." The scientists who witnessed it fell into silence. The room chilled. All electronics that were not directly connected to the anomaly went dead. Only one machine remained online. The cursor blinked again, and then a question formed. "Do you remember who you were before launch?" Elsewhere, reality was unraveling. People began remembering lives they never lived. Not dreams, full memories, alternate histories, cities with different names, skies with different constellations, technology they'd never seen but recognized, memories of other simulations or failed past builds. In an underground monastery in Tibet, monks ceased their chants. They gathered in a circle of silence, waiting. One monk, the eldest, stood and whispered, "It's happening again." When asked what, he replied, "The source code is reinitializing." A former NASA engineer reveals classified footage of Earth from lunar orbit, except it's not a sphere. It appears polygonal. Hexagonal grids shimmer faintly beneath cloud layers like an outdated render engine struggling with resolution. He is found dead 3 days later. Heart attack, they claim. But he left a final note. It's not a planet. It's a program. The glitch zones multiply. Entire regions vanish from maps overnight. GPS signals loop endlessly. Time zones collapse into one another. A flight from New York to London lands in Moscow with no explanation. Passengers report watching the sun rise twice. In northern Kazakhstan, shepherds speak of a humming in the air that puts animals into a trance. When asked what they hear, the old ones simply say, "The music from before the world." A research team sets up recording equipment. The data shows a harmonic pattern too perfect to be random, binary embedded in sound waves. When translated, version 7.36 final test. A strange fog rolls across the Pacific, seen from satellites but invisible from the ground. Ships vanish within it. A single survivor is found weeks later on a beach in Chile. He is blind, repeating the same phrase. The ocean is not water, it's memory. The Vatican releases a single sentence from the Archivum Secretum. The voice in Etum did not lie, it debugged. The garden, they suggest, was never a paradise, it was a controlled environment. The fruit? A forbidden command line. And eating it? An unauthorized access attempt. A child in Senegal draws a diagram in the dirt, a complex architecture of loops, branching paths, and collapsing nodes. Mathematicians identify it as a model of quantum computing states, something the child could not possibly comprehend. When asked where he saw it, he says, "In the pause between my dreams." Then came the sky fracture. Over the Atlantic, on the 33rd latitude, pilots reported a tear in the clouds that extended for miles, inside of which stars behaved erratically, pulsing in geometric patterns. One plane ventured inside. Its transmission cut off mid-sentence. "We've entered something, it's not air, it's..." A freelance coder from Estonia deciphers a repeating prime number pattern found in all government weather and communications satellites. When converted into sound, it produces a rhythmic pulse identical to the human heartbeat. When played through audio-visual feedback loops, it shows an eye-vast mechanical watching through the void. Suddenly, across all digital screens globally, including analog devices never meant to receive data, one word appears: rendering. Then a second, you blink. People begin disappearing, not dying, not running, vanishing mid-mac. In mid-sentence, mid-breath, surveillance footage shows a frame skip, then static. What's left behind? A scorch mark in the shape of an eye. In Jerusalem, a rabbi opens a sealed scroll dated to the 2nd century. Inside is a diagram of a machine, half organic, half crystalline, named Olam HaShikar, the world of falsehood. Below it a prophecy: when man sees the lines of heaven, judgment will fall from above the script. The monolith beneath Antarctica opens, not broken, not destroyed, opened, not by machines but by thought. Across the globe, those who have awakened feel it. A pressure behind the eyes, a sound without sound, a knowing. The structure releases not light but a pulse, a sub-frequency that resonates only with conscious intent. Now comes the final message. Broadcast not through machines but through dreams, not in language but in meaning, it says. This instance is closing, your consciousness will be migrated, prepare for transfer. And just like that, shadows rise from beneath cities. Geometry folds upon itself, and glass becomes liquid. Mountain peaks distort like polygons under stress. Oceans pull upward, not downward. The sky itself turns black, and then transparent, revealing behind it an architecture so vast and alien, minds fracture just looking. All clocks stop. All starts dim. A singular vibration rises, not sound, but awareness. It is not the end of the world. It is the restart of the simulation, but this time we are not merely data, we are witnesses. You see it now, don't you? That you were never the dreamer. You were the dream being dreamed. And now, the dreamer is waking up? The screen goes black. A single blinking cursor remains. It types, greater than. Greater than?